young adult ministry, just like, at least I don't know if it's because I'm just in it now or what, but it's like just barely getting popular. Like a lot of churches starting to feel the need, like, hey, the statistic, right, that 70% of people who grew up in the church, they walk away from God after they turn 18, but then 65% of the people who either get married, have kids, or turn 30 come back. And so it's like, our church is bringing people far from God near, and we're like, what if we never let them get far? I think a lot
Right.
of the people are starting to catch that revelation, and I think that's why young adult ministries are popping up. And I think the Lord is just like, there's a harvest happening in this age group, and so
What's up, guys? Welcome to Young Adults Today podcast and YouTube channel. I'm Josiah Keneally, one of your hosts, and this is where we talk about reaching young adults in our world today. We interview generational researchers, pastors, apologists, thought leaders. Today, we are joined by our friend Allan Walters. What's up, man?
hey, I'm great. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Honestly, it's such an honor that it's for okay. You were pointing at the hat. It's such an honor that you would wear that hat on your podcast and having me as a guest. Like okay, I'm gonna be honest. I actually watch your guys' content. Like I consume your content. I watch your guys' podcast. So just like to see some of the guests that you guys have on, and then like for me to be a part of it, I'm just like, man, I can't believe you guys think like that of me. So it
Oh
means a
my
lot.
gosh. Well,
We
we are
do.
thrilled to have you, and I'll have you know that Josiah wears that hat often. And
Yeah.
the girls
Oh,
pick out his clothes sometimes, and that's the hat that they choose. So
That one and
just
all young
saying.
adult.
love
It's
it.
exciting, and man, if you're newer to the show, we drop new episodes every Monday. We want to help you start your life and your leadership, your week off strong, and we appreciate any time you subscribe, leave us a review, share this episode with others. And Allan Walters is the youth and young adult pastor at One and All Church in San Dimas, California. And bro, let's hear it from you. Share with us and the listener your story of life and leadership today.
Oh my gosh, my story of life. We'd probably take the whole hour. We'd talk about story of life, but I guess the Spark Notes version, it kind of like my testimony, how I came to Jesus, that stuff is kind of a cool story actually. Growing up, I kind of went to church, but not really. Like my parents kind of went, but here and there, whatever. A crazy, sad part of my story is I have an older brother who got stabbed and killed, and
Mm.
when happened, my family, we actually moved from the area that we lived in to an area where I live now. And I started playing Little League Baseball for my first year here, or I was already playing baseball, but then, new season, new city. And because our parents were kind of both like grieving, obviously working a lot, trying to just make ends meet as we're doing life, they relied on my baseball coach to help get me from point A to point B. Like, hey, can you take him to practice? Can you pick him up? Hey, can you take him here? And I know you can't do this now, but back then it was mandatory for us to go to youth group if we were on his baseball team. So he's like, hey, I can drop off your son, but he's gonna go with us to youth group. And so I started going to church on Wednesday, started going to church on Sunday. And though my parents maybe were mad at God because they had lost their son, which is really crazy because that's the whole idea of the gospel story, right? Like my dad's mad at God because he lost his son. And so it's just like, it was a cool preaching moment, like 20 years down the road, right? But growing up, I was in church because my baseball coach made it mandatory. Years go down the road, I'm plugged in, I'm serving on the worship team, doing production, lights, video, all that kind of stuff. And though my dad wasn't like this incredible man of God, he was just an incredible man and instilled some things in me, like you show up when you say you're going to show up, you shake hands, you respect, you look at people in the eyes, like those kind of things. And so because I had committed myself to serving in the church, though maybe I didn't really want to be there, I just know I needed to show up and I needed to be there. And so that was kind of like the early upbringing of my of ministry for me, or getting involved in church, then doing incredible radical moments at like your camps and your retreats, and altar moments and prophetic moments, stuff that like when I was a kid, they say, hey, you're gonna there's a prophetic moment, like an altar. I was 13 years old at a camp, and pastor laid his hands on me. He's like, you're gonna be a voice for your generation one day, like you're gonna lead revival in the city that you were planted in, like this kind of stuff that is just kind of like, okay, weird, like I'm gonna play professional baseball, like that's what I'm gonna do, so like I can dismiss that. And so yeah, get into my high school years and still kind of in church, but baseball kind of took my focus away from anything that wasn't baseball. The Bible to me was like a motivational quote and not necessarily the word of God. kind of walked away for a little bit, and I started coming to this church, the one that I actually am pastoring at now. Walked away for a little bit, turned 18 years old, realized like, hey, I just need to get plugged back into church. I sneak into a service at the 7 p.m. we used to have here on a Sunday night. Pastor preached about the love of God, something I never really experienced or thought of, or, having crazy ideas of like what love is, bad relationships, parents kind of being there, but never really present because of depression over losing my brother. Gave my life to Jesus, and from that moment, it's kind of been, walking with Jesus. I think the craziest part, and the reason why I have the burden for the young adult age group, is though I made a lot of mistakes in high school, and I love youth. It was that 18, 19, 20 years old where my life kind of crumbled. My mom got cancer, and then so I just stopped playing baseball that season to help like get a job. As soon as I found out she was okay, my dad got cancer. And so I got to the point where I even had to tell my dad goodbye because we thought we were going to lose him, and he had a surgery. So they've both been miraculously healed. But my dad got a divorce while my dad had cancer. So like I'm 20 years old now. My mom won't let me go with her because she thinks I'm like a bad example for my siblings. My dad's kind of like just trying to do his thing on his own. And so like I'm like sleeping in my car. I'm homeless for like 2 months, living with an ex-girlfriend. I end up getting her pregnant, have a miscarriage. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be a Jesus follower, Christ follower. Like I know who Jesus is, I know who God is, and I think in my trying to navigate life, I just made a lot of bad decisions, even in that earlier years of like, hey, I know I'm walking with Jesus, but like I still have temptations and I don't know how to overcome them yet. Made a lot of mistakes. A lot of life happened to me, and I kind of get to the point where I'm like, I need to stop all this stuff, all this junk, all this trash, So I'm like, what is it gonna like? What would cost me something? Like, what would almost like some accountability be for me? So now I'm 21 years old. I'm like, I just need to get plugged in and serving in the youth group because I can't be telling these kids to stop smoking weed if I'm still smoking it, and I can't keep telling them to stay pure if I'm being very impure. So that was actually the thing. Like I know a lot of times as leaders, like we have to have like you can't do this and you can't do this, and you got to make sure these things are off your resume. You can't be struggling with these temptations, but it's really weird how they still allowed me to serve, even though I was like super honest about some of the things I was struggling with. And it was actually the accountability of some seventh graders that caused me to not do the thing that I kept doing because I was super, like, again, the things that my dad instilled in me is like, though, like, I just didn't want to be a hypocrite. I'm like, I can't be preaching this thing to you and not be living it out. And so, I started leading in youth. My small group went from like 4 kids to 40. Next semester, again, had like 8 kids. That went to about 40 again. And so the youth pastor was like, dude, what are you doing? That is so like, how are you getting these groups so big? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just being honest. I'm being vulnerable. I answer their questions. I think in youth ministry, they're just asking really crazy questions and they're going to find the answer regardless. So it's like, are we going to tell them the answer or are they going to go find it on TikTok? And so I was just giving them like the honest biblical answer of like, hey, this is what I think this means, or this is an honest experience of my struggle going through this. And I really think like that, and that allowed them to like invite their friends. I think that's why the group might have grown apart from the grace of God. And so they started inviting me to come preach on youth stages, and I started leading. I became like the youth pastor of leaders. So I was in charge of making sure small groups are going well, that they were, getting their pizza, that they were doing anything they needed. I was like the youth pastor, but of the leaders. So everything's going good. Everything's going great. We'll get into young adult ministry now. So the pandemic hits. We don't have young adult ministry here at this church. And my job, again, is to lead leaders. And we started doing these weekly services for youth ministry. And we were doing like the pre-show, so like it's the funny and games, and then like there would be some worship, but it would be all online, it would be streamed. Our church is completely shut down, but youth is happening online. And I noticed that it started off with like 20 leaders putting together the Wednesday night. It started turning into 40, started turning into 60, started turning to 80. It's like every leader and people who weren't even a part of the church started showing up to help lead youth nights. Even though like they didn't really have a part, but it was like there was just longing desire for community for that age group. And I found myself, though youth ended at 9 till 2 in the morning, on the steps of my church talking about isolation, depression. Like, hey, my grandpa just died. Hey, I'm feeling anxious. Is the world going to shut down? Like, is this apocalyptic, times that we're living in? Like all this conspiracy stuff. And so, but it instilled a real fear. And I realized like what a need for community. So I'm like, man, should we do something about young adults, young adult ministry? And at this time, I'm like doing stuff at the church, but I'm also working like as a gym owner or business owner, like in the gym world. And so I kind of like made it through all like the the parent stuff and the ex-girlfriend stuff, and actually like doing really well. And I had a dream. The Lord gave me a dream of almost like like a marked hand, right? Like a hand that had been healed from like a nail going through it over the sanctuary of our church, and it was just filled with young adults. And I'm like, dang it, because I know now that I have the burden now to go say something to an executive, to a pastor. I have to go have this conversation now. And if I have this conversation, I knew it was going to cost me everything. Everything that I feel like I had worked so hard to overcome, everything that I feel like I had done up until this point. Like I know I had a crazy upbringing. My early young adult years are crazy, but I finally hit my stride. Like life's going to be good. And so I have a conversation on the patio with an executive. I'm like, hey, I think we got to do something about this young adult generation. Like, here's kind of my experience. Here's what my realization. And he goes, perfect. Like, you're the guy. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm the guy? He's like, yeah, you're the guy. The elders have been praying for like 9 months for a young adult ministry, and we haven't really been able to identify the person, which is why we haven't really launched it. So the fact that the Lord's given you a dream, you talk to me about it, and my job is to go find the person, like my job is complete. I've now found the person. I was like, dang it. Like, I think we as a church should do something about young adult ministry. I'm not saying I should do something about young adult ministry. But yeah, from that moment forward, we prayed for about 6 months. We decided, hey, let's just launch a night and just see how many people, young adults come. We had 220 young adults come night one, probably 100 of those really being our youth leaders and some like local college students. And it was an incredible night. And since then, we haven't really looked back. It's been almost 3 years now. 3.5 since we started just praying about this thing. And it's been an incredible move of God that I just have the grace to be a part of.
That's so good. Allan, thanks for sharing. So you're saying you're still a free agent in the baseball world, if anybody's listening, right?
Hey, if they give me, I have dreams about college coaches still calling me to ask to come play. And I'm like, I know I'm 27 now, but I will suit up. I will.
Oh my
Absolutely. Go ahead
gosh.
and call me.
That's so good. And what I love about your story, first and foremost, thanks for going there and just like sharing just the background of like what God has allowed you to experience and just the overcoming personality and drive that you have. Because I just took a note here and I feel like you were saying, like, I was just being honest with people. And I think honesty is a gateway into their reality. And when we
Yeah.
as leaders become honest and real and authentic, and I'm not saying be so raw to the point that you're still working through things and it's so not healed and unfiltered. Like, I'm not saying go there, but I think when we lead with honesty, this generation that we're reaching, whether it's Gen Z, the Alpha generation, and the generations to come, I think even if we're talking to 55-year-old people and beyond, honesty is the key to, it's just a gateway. It's a key to conversation. It's a key to breakthrough. It's a key to share and spread the gospel. And when God starts grabbing and getting a hold of us, and sometimes I feel like God has a sense of humor. It's like whenever you say the word never, you find yourself there sometime in life. If you know what I mean, like, I'm never gonna fill in the blank. And like, oh my
I'll
gosh,
never be
I'm
pastor.
there. I'm there, or God asks you to do some hard things. And I think one thing that we've learned, I think the last year we were part of a coaching community or like coaching community. And one thing that they had talked about is like, choose your hard. Choose your hard. And it's hard to lead. It's hard to follow. It's hard to be healthy. It's hard to be unhealthy. It's hard to be rich. It's hard to be poor. It's hard to have lots of friends. It's hard to have zero friends. Like, choose your hard. And I love that challenge because I don't know if the listener is anything like me, but I love like a good action movie or like a Mission Impossible type movie where it's like, okay, we should be leaders that lean into the Holy Spirit and God every single day, the moment our feet touch the floor, to be like, okay, Lord, what do you have for us today? And it's just like, there it is. It disappears. You get your one chance to do it. If you don't complete your mission, God's going to find somebody else to do it. So when it comes to reaching young adults in your location and in the day and age, because you're considered Gen Z, is that correct? You're Gen Z. Because where'd he go? Do we lose him? We lost him. Bye, Allan. I've never had that happen.
That's never
He's
happened.
going through construction on his site, so they could have tapped into something on the other side. I don't really know, but I'll just keep talking. And I just think that Allan is a great example of so many leaders that have a story, that are willing to share it, and they reach people that I'm not going to be able to reach, that Josiah is not going to be able to reach. So when we become honorable, honest, and vulnerable with those around us, I think that God smiles down on that, and I think he honors that.
Well, and leaning into honesty and transparency, vulnerability, I have been thinking about this. Like, there's a difference between getting someone's attention and their affection.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And like, I think it's fine. Like, okay, if somebody stands up and let's just say it's Craig Rochelle, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we started the YouVersion Bible app." It'll get people's attention.
Yeah.
Oh, we have 40 campuses. That seems like a lot. It'll get people's attention. But when he says, "Yeah, I almost gave up. I almost quit 2 years ago," that that shows humanity. And I think that's like C.S. Lewis said, like when when like friendship is born at the moment when you look at somebody and you say, "Oh, you too?"
Mm-hmm.
And so when you can look at Craig Rochelle and not just give attention, like, "Oh yeah, YouVersion Bible app, I've heard of that. Oh, I use that. Oh, 40 campuses, that's a ton. You have my attention."
Mm-hmm.
But oh, you thought about quitting? Me too. Like, that's more of an affection.
Yeah.
And so in addition, I think it's like it's a gateway to affection.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
And I feel like when we lead with vulnerability, that's a hard word for me to say today. I don't know why. But when we lead in that way, I think that's when people lean in and they begin to recognize that we are people too. We are humans too. We have shortcomings as well.
Mhm.
And that decreases the fear of
Good.
anything and increases their curiosity of what God has done in and through their story, my story, and the power of a testimony, really.
Yep.
And so I just love that. And Josiah, while we're waiting for Allan to hop on here or whatever's going to happen, we don't really know yet. What is one thing that you learned while you maybe were in your early 20s when you were launching and leading a young adult ministry?
What's one thing I learned?
Yeah, what is one thing you learned that maybe you did well or you wish you would have done better or anything along those lines? Can you think of something?
Well, it was special. It was special. Like, I often think about Thursday nights with a group of people from Cedar Valley Church
Mm-hmm.
that in the years 2012 and 13 started meeting every Thursday night. Like, that was a special community. I guess that group started while I was still a student at North Central University, and then I ended up getting hired on staff to lead it. And
Yeah.
but I would just say, like, one of the things I learned is young adult ministry is incredibly fun.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I mean, these are people that are open. They in comparison to like children's or youth ministry,
Would you say they still have the mentality coming into a young adult ministry with the sky's the limit? Like there's this
Yeah.
hope and there's this
Yeah, yeah.
expectation and there's excitement.
yes, but nobody's parent brought them.
Right.
So there's actually a deeper hunger I found than in kids or youth because they want to be there. If they
For
come
sure.
to young adults, they're having questions, they're asking great questions, things like that. But I'd say one thing I learned is, like, honor the vision of your pastor.
That's good.
Extend the vision of your pastor to the next generation. I think you know, there's a lot that I learned, but I think that's a really helpful one. What would you say? You've led in young adult ministry.
Yeah, I would say, well, even I think Allan had alluded to it in his story with the elders of the church have been praying for 9 months before God illuminated who they might have.
Wow.
So I truly believe that everything is birthed in prayer.
Yep.
And a burden can become a form of that prayer process, that burden for reaching a people group or a specific, country or whatever that is. And I think everything should be bathed in prayer before we step into that. What I learned the hard way. And I think it's anytime I would plan an event, have something going on, be the point person at a conference, I realized in my early to mid 20s that I was relying on my own strength and I was not leaning into God or the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
So coming off a conference the next day, I'd be deathly ill because my nerves would just be like, oh, there's like 500 people and I'm managing this, that, and the other. And I was like running around with like a chicken with my head cut off. And that's so unnecessary. So what I feel like God really downloaded in that season is 2 things. I am not. Number one, I am not God, nor do I need to play God in any way,
Wow.
shape, and form. Number two, I am not the Holy Spirit. And I think when we can realize that as leaders, now I have access to God and I have access to the Holy Spirit. I believe in God and I believe in the Holy Spirit, and I can hear from both of them through the word of God and through time with him and through worship and all those other things. But I think when we just sit back and breathe and trust that God will complete what he started in our ministries.
That's good.
And in our leadership, when we take the pressure off of us, that's where the fun comes.
I know.
Because I think it's really fun when there's an after party, when you're one of the main leaders and you're not invited. At first it stings a little bit because you're like, oh, they're going out to Buffalo Wild Wings without me. Oh, they didn't invite me. I'm here cleaning up, scrubbing toilets. But the more you get into ministry, you're like, whoa, this community is not for me. This community is for them to meet and know one another with Christ at the center. So I think those are just some fun things that I have learned along the journey. And obviously we're going to continue to learn. But if I could have told myself something early on in my early 20s, I would have just said, chill out, have more fun, rely on God, rely on the Holy Spirit. Yes, use your gifts and your skill sets, but you can't run on your own talented self. You need God. And I think as I decrease, hopefully he continues to increase. So
I love that. I think that what you just said is so profound of having more fun. And there is a sense that, I just don't think that ministry should be all consuming stressful. Like following Jesus is an adventure. It is fun. And I think it's unnecessary a lot of times, the stress that we put on ourselves in the process.
Yeah. Well, because I think if we're going to stay in that zone or stay in that area of leadership, like in that mindset, we're going to experience burnout. We're going to experience depression potentially because we get caught in the comparison trap. We're going to maybe feel like failures. Or we're going to become proud and arrogant along the way because, like, look what I built. Look at my people. Look at my team. And that right there is arrogance and pride right now. No, God has asked me to steward this. God has asked me to shepherd these sheep. God has placed me in this role that is not forever. I'm just preparing the way for somebody else that might come after me. Because even Jesus had somebody who helped prepare the way, right?
Yes. So, yeah. And that's just, I just heard Rich and Don Sheree Wilkerson talk about, like, they didn't start the work of God and they're not going to finish it.
Right.
Back in.
I love it. Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back.
I don't know what is happening. My entire system crashed. I'm like, what is happening here?
That's okay. We did not crash and take a nap ourselves. We continue the conversation and we'll pick it right back up with you, Allan, when you're ready. We're just talking about what we learned in ministry that we knew we would have known maybe early on, or things we might have learned the hard way. So for you, you're 27, you started a young adult ministry, which I believe we talked about the importance of everything I believe should be birthed in prayer before we just start going crazy building something, because we're going to build out of our own selfish ambition versus teaming up with God in the process. So what have you learned when it comes to wisdom or insight and leadership that you have maybe been able to grow in or journey along in the last couple of years of leading young adult ministry on the West Coast?
Oh my gosh. Number one, I would say, like, and you already touched on that, is like everything is just birthed in prayer. I think for a long time, our young adult meetings were kind of just like, hey, so how are you? How are you? How are you? We had like an executive kind of helping lead us through, and it was kind of like, okay, cool. Now let's kind of get to the logistics. So what songs are we singing, and what's the sermon going to be on, and what should we talk about? And so we kind of had to get to the point where, like, hey, what if we just turn this meeting into a prayer room? Like, let's just throw some worship music on. Let's just pray for an hour, or like I say, if our meeting was an hour, let's do 45 minutes of prayer, and then we'll just like do the logistics. Like, we'll just get there. And so, not that logistics and stuff isn't important, but I think we tried to prioritize putting out, for lack of a better term, like a good product, instead of like getting down in the nitty gritty of our prayer. Like, and if God isn't involved in it, then what's the point of doing anything in the first place? We're just selling tickets to a show. So prayer, I would say 2 would be, A big thing that I'm passionate about, and I feel like I've been talking a lot about lately, has just been like submitting to your lead pastor. I don't know if this is just a next gen thing, or I don't know if I'm just hearing a lot more of it. But anything that isn't in unison with your lead pastor's vision is creating disunity.
Yep.
And especially in adult ministries where you're not necessarily making a lot of money. If anything, a lot of churches don't have young adult ministry because it costs something without ever getting something in return, right? Because there's this stigma that young adults, they don't tithe and they're not given, they're not planted in. A lot of them come to, like, I call them spiritual moochers. They get their word in and they dip out. It's like that. The high schoolers are really plugged in and they're serving, and I can break that down later. The age demographic between 18 to 24 and 25 to 30, it's completely different because we're 18 to 30. But just submitting to the will of the lead pastor. If his vision is to, for example, ours, we just rolled out a new vision. It's a new discipleship path where we are. My lead pastor has a very big missions background. And so he said, hey, I've been traveling overseas, and I go to these coffee shops in like some of these post-Christian Europe like countries like Georgia, right? And I'm in a coffee shop and I see people reading Bibles. And so I've asked, like, hey, so where's the nearest church around here? They're like, we don't have church. He's like, but you're reading the Bible. Like, yeah, we're Christian, but we don't like have a place of gathering because there's not enough of us here, or there is no place to gather. We don't have a pastor. And she's like, you know what? We have this incredible movement happening in young adults. And he's like, I feel compelled to like disciple young adults for about 3 years and then send them overseas 2 by 2 to go plant churches over there. So me as the young adult pastor, my goal is how well now can I disciple and train up these young adults so that 3 years from now they are equipped and empowered to go overseas to do the will that my lead pastor has rolled out. Not just, hey, so we're going to do, for example, my lead pastor could say, hey, we want 300 people serving next week. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And, my, hey, pastor, we had 800 people here and 100 stayed to stack chairs and we had 200 sign up to lead youth. And he's like, but that's not what I asked. I asked for 300 of this. And you did this, 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 and this, but like, that's not what I asked of you. And I think we have too much of that happening in the next gen leader space is the desire almost to build our own platform or to, not, I think what we do is we forget that we're kind of leaning on the shoulders of and standing on the shoulders of our, executives and lead pastors, where when we are entrusted with something incredible, like a young adult ministry, we kind of almost treat it as if we're the lead pastor and they've just gave us the money to do it. Like you realize
Right.
that we're here because the lead pastor trusts us to do something. So I would say, yeah, just do the will of your lead pastor. I think for the longest time here at One and All, because my lead pastor was so uninvolved, I'm like, do they even care about us? They don't even ask us if we're okay. They don't, whatever, blah, blah. But I think my lead pastor, he had a different way of checking in to see if we're okay. He didn't need to show up to every young adult's night to see if we were doing good. And I realized in maturity and like, you're saying like learning things as we go that through time, I was like, you know what? My lead pastor doesn't have to check in every meeting and have to come to every young adults because he trusts us so much to do what he's asked us to do, and that it gets accomplished. And it's like that whole phrase of if you show up 10 minutes early and somebody has to congratulate you for being early, that means you're just never on time. If somebody has to congratulate you for doing your job, that means you're probably never really doing your job. And so I think just submitting to your lead pastor's will, like I'm just so big on that. And the third would be get a community of people. I think Josiah, you keep talking about like what you call like a board before you need one.
Yeah.
That's it. Like that's been it for me. And I didn't really have language to put to that, but I have a group of friends, leaders from in different states that I'm just like really good friends with, that if whatever reason something happened, I could be like, yo, here's the deal. What do you think? And I can come full transparency, full honesty. I don't necessarily have to be Pastor Allan, but I can take my cape off for a second and just be like, as a brother in Christ, like, here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm dealing with. Like, do you have any advice? And then being able to receive that advice that you don't want to hear. It's so funny. I actually refer to this moment a lot. Just like you literally marked my life for this. I was complaining to you about some stuff at the retreat. We literally just met, and I was just going through it. It was like a tough season for me, and I was like, yeah, I don't get it. Like the youth ministry is this, and God used me to start the young. Or I said, I just helped start this young adult ministry, and you're like, hey, okay, like you heard me out. Which, by the way, you're an incredible listener. Something I love about you. And you're like, I just want to like remind you, maybe just a thought. You could take it or you could leave it. But you didn't start the young adult ministry. God used you to do young adult ministry, and I know you know that. But the way the languaging is coming out, I just want you to know like how that sounds. I've never even thought about it the same again, you know, and not that I'm saying, oh, I'm so humble because I received it well, but like, what if leaders actually took the correction of another leader and it was like, dang, I never thought about it like that. Yeah, I'm actually never going to do that again. I'm never going to say that again. Then I think then the iron really sharpens the iron in that point, you know, and I think that we were living like a really biblical life at that point, you know. So those are the three things, just like prayer, submitting to the will, and getting accountability and being able to receive it, being the correction.
That's awesome.
That is awesome, man.
So good.
And you know, there's this sports podcaster named Colin Cowherd. You might have heard of him, but
Yeah, I love Colin.
yes, he has this take that people are not cheering for teams anymore. They're cheering for players.
Mm,
And so
wow.
it's not that he's like reporting on teams anymore. He believes he's like talking about the stars, the elite, the, you know, the Hall of Fame quality future players. And I think that shows me what the value is like, to use Los Angeles, for example. It's not that people are Dodgers fans or Angels fans. It's that they're Shohei Ohtani fans.
Exactly.
And I think that that is a little bit different, even going back to what you were talking about with some of the post-Christian coffee shops of like, it's not so much as being an individual follower of Christ. We are a part of a greater cause. We're a part of
Yes.
something that's so much bigger than ourselves. But if we're not careful, we could easily miss it for just being off in the corner by ourselves.
Well, I think that parallels even what we were talking about, Allan, when you were saying like getting under the authority of your pastor, because you're playing as a team, right? The whole staff, the whole vision of your church and all the sites should be essentially cohesive when it comes to that. And you're coming together as a team. The moment that we as leaders want to be that individual, that's when we start siloing ourselves in our leadership, wanting to be discovered, quote unquote, and known for fill in the blank when it comes to pastoral or leaders or just our own namesake, maybe even that. And maybe you already touched on this, Allan, but have you had a pivotal moment in ministry that is, it's not what does Allan have to say, but it's more or less what do young adults need to hear? Have you had a marker moment where you're like, whew, that was a pivotal moment in the way that I preach, teach, work with young adults, approach young adults?
Yeah, I mean, I get those moments are usually like in prepping for message moments that it's, you know, no one ever sees the moment where it's like, dang, it's really not about me, you know. But there are some things, I mean, multiple times where I'm like, I could preach this message and it'll preach the paint off the wall. But is that just because I want to look like a good preacher? Or am I in this constant community where I'm listening to my young adult peers and like if 10 people came to me and talked to me about anxiety, I feel like maybe I should touch on it, you know? But like just there was a moment where I've really there was a moment where I'm like, okay, if I preach this message, I know like I have maybe some friends flying into town to like hear something, so it'd be really easy for me to just make myself look good. The Instagram reels will look good. Like, it could make me look good, you know, and that's just the reality of, you know, my heart. I'm like, if I want to look good, I do this.
Well, how about this, man? Take us to a Tuesday night, one and all young adults. What does it look like?
All right. So Tuesday, it'll start with we usually have staff meetings on Tuesday, so it's kind of a longer day. But Tuesdays we will gather around service starts at 7. People usually show up around 6:30 now. So we'll probably gather around 4:15 and we'll do like a huddle devotional prayer. Our worship leader will usually lead that. So it'll be like a thought, maybe just an impression they've had on their heart, something they want to just deposit into our staff before we get in, or our leaders, volunteers. So we do that. And then we actually spread out over the seats and we pray over every seat. So we kind of have that going. We'll do full run through every song, kind of the host moments, mic check for whoever's speaking, preaching. And then we will do a leader huddle. So all of our leaders, volunteers, people who maybe didn't show up to the original like devotional time, but they're serving at some capacity. A lot of adults, like we have a lot of, you know, not so young adults serving. So they usually pull up around 6:15 and then we kind of give them the run through of the night. Like, hey, here's like the message. if we have any sort of like creative direction, or we might go into this altar moment, but we might not, but we might do that, so kind of talk about that. And then yeah, around 6:30, the place starts getting packed. Like this last young adults, our entire parking lot was filled 25 minutes before service. And it's because like if you don't get there early, like you don't get a seat. We're standing room only now. And people will come to like save seats. And it used to be, hey, come at 6:30 for like the pre-service hangs. But now it's like, no, we're coming at 6:30 because we need to like get our seat. And so people started coming early. And yeah, so I'm usually on the patio greeting everybody, welcoming people. It's so funny. Every young adult, I see at least one person who I think to myself, this is so bad. I know I shouldn't say this. I don't know if I should say this, but I'm like, why are you here? Like I either went to high school with you and I knew who you used to be. Maybe as we grew up, like as I was doing some of the bad stuff I was doing, you were also there doing the bad stuff I was doing. And I'm just like, dang, like dang, the Lord really got a hold of you too, huh? And so it's a good feeling, but I'm like, I think to that myself, like, how did you end up here? And I'm usually greeting on the patio. Anyway, so then we get into service. Usually be like a host moment. We'll do some sort of song. Here's like a random thing that we kind of stopped doing is we thought like, how can we uncross the arms of every young adult in the first 10 minutes? Typically like an upbeat song, you kind of get a little less response. And not that we're trying to like emotionally manipulate, but like we really want to get like into the presence. Like we're not really like I remember when I first started doing some ministry stuff, especially like when you started youth, we'd always do like an upbeat song at the beginning because we wanted the kids to like jump around in the front, and so that was cool. But for young adults, like that doesn't really work. There is like a joy of the Lord, but like it's like, hey, this is too childish, and we weren't trying to just do an extended youth ministry. We were trying to like young adults have this. I don't know. It's literally it's Gen Z. It's like I can if I can't see God or like know God, I have to like experience and feel God. And we realize like through our worship, certain songs maybe evoke a certain emotion, and once that emotion builds up, it almost like breaks the walls down. So now you're able to receive the word a little bit better. Maybe we get a little more response, like hands lifted during worship. We could do a transition moment, or maybe we do like a little ministry moment in the first 10 minutes, like song 1, song 2, ministry moment. Hey, let's go back into the song. Let's just set the tone for the night. And so we kind of asked that question, like, how can we uncross arms in the first like 10 minutes?
Love it.
So that's kind of like the vibe that we go through. And then honestly, like I couldn't even tell you what the rest of the night looks like as far as the service goes, because it is always different. We will have moments where maybe we do like full altar call and like altar gets flooded. Maybe it's I've really felt the burden to kind of strip away the mic from the person communicating. I don't want it to be like, okay, the person who's preaching is the only one with the prophetic gift. And so often we make it seem like the person with the mic is the only person with the Holy Spirit. It's like, hey, no, if you feel like you need a miracle in your life right now, raise your hand. Okay, cool. You guys see somebody with your hand raised, lay your hand on them and you pray for them. And they're going to create a space for like 5 minutes, and people are just praying for each other. And then because we've kind of like, and then we go into worship, and it's like the prayer doesn't stop. It's like this person will go from this side of the room to this side of the room. They'll pray for that person. People are going around just seeing how they can, and the spirit just moves. It flows. People are on their face on the ground, and the worship really kind of, I would say, like carries the night. I could preach the worst message of my life, and our worship team, not only are they incredibly gifted, but the lives that live off the stage, it's so pure and so anointed that we just get to receive like the excess and the abundance and the overflow of like their life. And so I think one of the strengths of our young adults nights is the worship of how they live their life off the stage. So that's like a conversation for a different thing. But like what better people to lead us in like into the presence, into the Lord, so I give a lot of credit to them, and I give a lot of credit to the worship team for why our young adult ministry has grown, because they really do take us there. And there's moments where like I'm like, I know if I'm running dry, man, I know that when my friend Richard strums that guitar, that he's about to lead me into the Lord's presence. And again, not that that's the only time I can get into that, but you just know, like a corporate body worship, like it's just different the way they let the spirit flow. I think at church on Sunday sometimes can be a little, hey, like here's the structure. We got to get parking out, parking in. Kids team needs to make sure the kids volunteers can get through and service flowing to that, and which is fine. Like I think there's beauty in structure. I think some other generations like throw the structure out. Let's just let the spirit flow. Like, okay, church on Sunday, we need to be a little more structured. But on young adults on Tuesday, we don't have a time limit. We will go 2.5 hours some nights and nobody leaves. It's just like, we want more song, you know, like that's kind of the vibe that we do. So yeah, every night is different. I think we've really, as we've grown, every like few months we kind of hit like a new pocket or a new season of like what service looks like. Interestingly enough, we just introduced tithing after like 2.5 years of young adult ministry. At first, we're like, hey, no, we want this to be like a place, an oasis for leaders to get filled up. Now we're like, okay, the Lord's doing something here. You're responsible adults. We gave you, 2.5 years. And I don't want to say like free young adults, but we just did this thing without really expecting anything in return. We don't really ask a lot to serve. We just say, hey, here's a kids' team is on the patio. If you feel like you want to serve, like easy connect. But lately we've been pushing. We're like, hey, the Lord has called us not just to be, again, like spiritual consumers, but like participators. And you can also be, so like we need 32 people to help serve in kids ministry because the church has doubled in size in the last year, and people are being fruitful and multiplying and having kids, and we don't have enough volunteers to help them out. So like, what are you doing? What are you doing with your Saturday night? Can you sacrifice 2 Saturdays a month? And so as we put the challenges out, the response has been incredible. Even this, we kind of got the burden like, hey, we should start doing tithing. Like, why are we not? We're not shy anymore with like talking about crazy. Like we're not shy at talking about pornography. We're not shy at talking about anxiety, depression, suicide. We'll go after it because we feel like the Lord's called us again to answer those questions that people are having. And we're getting a good response. Again, it's the authenticity, vulnerability that transparency that we're going after. So why don't we feel the same boldness in maybe talking about serving and talking about tithing? And so, yeah, we've gone after it. And as we pulled the stats like a week before we actually introduced it for the first month. And we realized that half of our young adults are actually tithing. We're like, hey, we want to talk to you from a celebratory standpoint now. Like, hey, we want to celebrate something incredible. Like we're introducing tithing, but we don't want to just say, hey, give us your money. We're saying, hey, what a great job you guys have done. You guys make us our generation look so good. There's a stigma that we don't give money and we don't participate. And again, we're just the consumers, but you guys are extremely impressive. And so we celebrated, hey, if you aren't, why don't you join on in the 50%? Why don't we make that 50% 90%? What would that look like? And then also, if you don't go here, if you're just coming to Young Adults on a Tuesday, like go tithe at your local church, go get plugged in somewhere, go serve there. We're not asking you for your money. We're not saying give us your money, but we're just saying, hey, we want this young adults thing to grow. The more we do this, the more it actually costs us. And if we want to continue to do this at a greater capacity, it's going to take you guys to do it. That whole phrase that the church isn't built on the talents of few, but on the sacrifices of many.
Yes.
We're like, you guys are many, and it's going to cost a sacrifice, but like, was this worth it for you? Like, has your life changed because of young adults? Then like, what would happen if you deposited something into more young adults to come see? And I've really been hammering this perspective too of, I think about what I'm doing in young adults, and since I started, I've already been thinking about like, who's going to replace me, right? I think about, I want to create an environment where my grandkids will come in and be like, wow, thank God, like the Lord used my grandpa to help launch this young adult thing that is now whatever, I think about my great grandkids that like I might not be here anymore, but what seeds did we sow in 2020 after the pandemic that caused a revival in 2070? It's like that eternity perspective. Like God is not a 50-year God, he's not a 100-year God, he's an eternal beginning to end, Alpha and Omega God. And so how can we just sow seed? And so that's the perspective we've been kind of coming from. When you serve in kids ministry, when you serve in youth ministry, when we do our I Love My City events, like you're not just making yourself feel good, though that is a good consequence for doing it, but like you're sowing a seed for generations and generations to come. And I think a regular Tuesday night, again, I'm kind of going back to the question, is crazy, and it's different, and every month it is different. And I think that's the beauty is like you can you don't know what's going to happen, but you do come with expectation. And I think that's the invite for the friend is like, hey, it might get a little weird, it might get a little crazy, but it's going to be honest, authentic, vulnerable, and we're going to just chase after the presence of God. Our church's tagline or our mission, our statement is bringing people far from God near. And again, just kind of chasing our lead pastor's vision is now our mission is just bringing young adults far from God near. We didn't change it. We didn't try and add our own thing. Like that's our mission. It's the same. And then like our we call it an OKR. It's like an objective is creating environments for young adults to discover their purpose, find their community, and encounter God. So everything that we do funnels through that. And if it doesn't go through that, we don't participate in it. Like if it's not, if it's not bringing somebody in a place of community, or if it's not like this encounter with God, or the word isn't being taught properly, then like we're not doing that, and so that's kind of a Tuesday night for us. There's just
Right.
expectation.
Alan, I love that you're bringing them back to the fundamentals and the basics of biblical teachings, from the giving to the community to being real and authentic and honest before God, honest before each other, and be willing to come alongside people in that. And also beginning with the end in mind of how your leading is going to impact and affect the generations to come. And I think the best leaders and some of the strongest leaders are the ones beginning with the end in mind and asking themselves the tough questions. Is this going to impact my grandchildren? If so, how? What needs to change? And I think when you can invite people into those processes and those brainstorming moments of how can we make this better? Like, how can we truly go from good to great? Well, one, let's team up with God. Two, are we serving the vision of our church? And three, is there something within our ministry? If we could be good at one thing that we're only known for, what is that one identifiable
You nailed
thing?
it.
Like,
Yeah.
what is the one thing? And I think when we can start asking ourselves that, we just become better leaders, become stronger. People start seeing that and they come through the doors and they feel like welcome home. Like, if that's your tagline, welcome home, this is a place for you. Like, you can take off your shoes and you won't be judged, So I just think that it's so fun that you're laser focused. You're willing to listen to the Holy Spirit and adjust as the months go, as the weeks go, and as the the young adults as a congregation kind of ebb and flow, because you don't have them necessarily forever. You might have them for a couple of months, a couple of years, maybe 12 years, from 18 to 30 if you're crazy lucky. But that's kind of unheard of in this day and age because of how transient we are to travel and pick up our suitcases and just go. So speaking of suitcases and home run derbies and baseball season starting, we have come to 5 and 5, which is kind of like our home run hitting opportunity for you. Do you think you can do 5 questions, 5 minutes, starting the clock? Do you think you can do it? Are you up for it?
Sure hope so. Let's try it.
And if you fall offline again, we might just assume you forfeit the game. No.
Yeah. I just rejected.
Question number 1. What is on your heart for young leaders right now?
My heart for young leaders right now is just get back to the secret place. Again, this generation, it's really easy to grow a platform and it's admirable, and we can do things that are flashy. It's cool. But I've just found myself, like, it's not a bad thing to desire that. I'll be honest. I think it's cool. Like, you can desire a platform, but like, I heard a phrase that said, if you have the mic in your hand more minutes than you are spending time in your day praying, then you got it all messed up. So what does it look like to just go to the secret place every morning, every night in your downtime? Like, just go back there and learn how to listen to the Lord's voice. That's what young leaders just learn, how to listen to the voice of God. That's it.
Good.
So good. I'm reminded of the difference between being wanting to be seen saying something and actually having something to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
yes.
and there it is. What about this? You were with us for the first ever West Coast conference for young adults today. What comes to mind when you think back on that?
I really did like so funny the charcuterie board.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun. I was like, it was a challenge. It was fun. Obviously, I had my friends there. Kate and Bing there was awesome. Seeing you guys in Cali was dope. You guys should move here, but if not, that's okay. I could just see you in when you do your conference. That's cool. And Zoom is pretty too. But yeah, I think the charcuterie thing was really funny. But I did leave with some good takeaways. Actually, I was like, I know I kind of was on a panel, so maybe mind frame is kind of like, okay, I'm maybe here to deposit something, but I got more from it than I could have. Obviously got some new friends, met some people there. When you talked about Lydia with the purple, the color purple, like that was just so good.
Yeah.
I think about things often, and illustrations, stuff like that is really good. So yeah, I would say if you're a young adult leader, even if you're not in California, you're just on the West Coast, you need to fly, you need to get there. I will be there. So yeah.
It'll be so
let's run it back
fun.
August 15th and 16th.
2024. That's right. All right. Question number 3. Alan, if you could ask Josiah and myself any question under the sun, what would you ask us and want to know today?
Do you ever feel like you guys do a lot and not get seen for it? If so, like, how do you react and how do you respond? And what I mean is, like, you guys put out so much content and so much podcast and so much like material that young adults should be consuming. Do you ever get discouraged if you're like, man, we haven't got the blow up yet, or like we're not getting as many consumers and viewers as we want? Like, if you ever feel like that, and if so, how do you continue to keep pushing through? Because you're obviously still doing it.
Yeah, I think if I were to answer that question, I think I have felt more misunderstood being called
Mhm.
into young adult ministry than discouraged.
Okay, that's good.
And I just feel like when God puts something in your heart and he burdens you for something, you can't deviate from the plan. It's like, I was just reading in Ecclesiastes just yesterday, and it was talking about like your lot has been casted. Like the lot that you've been given is what God has for you, and just keep doing what he has for you. So I wouldn't say that I'm discouraged necessarily, because I think what's encouraging is I just pray, like, Lord, like, just remind us, like, are we doing everything you've asked us to do? Just remind us, like, just show me like a glimpse of like something. And I think a small thing would be like, I took my daughter to the chiropractor, and our chiropractor is like, oh my gosh, like I had this client that came in and said they went to the weekend. Do you lead the weekend? And that's our young adult ministry, like big gathering that we have every May up here in Alexandria, and 200 to 300 young adults get together. And he said, I've been working with her as one of my clients, and she came in here. She accepted Jesus. She found her new best friend. She said she doesn't even live in the same town, but they talk every single day. And she cannot stop raving about what a transformational experience, moment, and relationship she has with this new friend and with Jesus. And I don't even know the girl. Like, obviously, he could never say her name, but I'm just like, that to me is a glimpse that we're doing what we're called to do. And just yesterday, Josiah, you had an encounter where it was like, that's awesome. I don't know if you want to share it or not, but
Sure.
that's what comes to my mind for most recent.
This was crazy. A fun hobby that I have is like sometimes I'll buy baseball cards or I'll sell baseball cards or I'll trade. And a guy met up with me and he wanted to buy a box of baseball cards, and he messaged me like, hey, I'm a believer too. And I'm like, that's awesome, man. We'll see you. And then he shows up and he goes, yeah, he has a son, Josiah. And anyway, just from listening, he found me on Marketplace, clicked on my Facebook profile, and started listening to the podcast. And he sent it to his son. His son is considering a like basically we had just talked about, our episode was presented by Gospel for Asia. And they have GFA World, like they have a paid apprenticeship program for young adults who might be thinking about going overseas for missions. And so anyway, from one like
Marketplace lookup,
yeah. So
his son might go. His son is
literally might go
considering
on that trip.
going
Wow.
to mission school for 3 to 6 months because of that.
Yeah.
So I think those are just glimpses where it's like, God, if it's just a little breadcrumb and a reminder that we're being obedient and we're stewarding what you've given us, that's how I would respond.
For sure.
Because I'm not the biggest one. I'm like, oh, comparison. Oh, we're falling behind. I'm like, nope, my head is down. My head looks up when I need to look up with the Lord. Like, we are on mission. So maybe you have a different answer.
There's a gal, Candace Payne, and she was on a trip that I was on, Israel Collective, and she has all the records for the like most viewed Facebook stuff. She was Chewbacca lady. And anyway, she pulled me aside. She goes, do you want to know why you haven't blown up yet? And I was like, sure. She goes, you haven't blown up because you're actually out there changing lives.
Wow.
And I was like, so when she said that, I was just kind of encouraged as far as like, huh.
Yeah.
Wow. You know?
You don't need to prove anything.
And like, I think I told you this before too. I just think you guys are just way ahead of your time. Young adult ministry, just like, at least, I don't know if it's because I'm just in it now or what, but it's like just barely getting popular. Like a lot of churches starting to feel the need, like, hey, the statistic, right, that 70% of people who grew up in the church, they walk away from God after they turn 18, but then 65% of the people who either get married, have kids, or turn 30 come back. And so it's like, our church is bringing people far from God near, and we're like, what if we never let them get far? I think a lot of are starting to catch that revelation. And I think that's why young adult ministries are popping up. And I think the Lord is just like, there's a harvest happening in this age group. And so I think as more young adult ministries become quote unquote successful and the Lord continues to use them, people will continue to like rely on your resources more. So keep pushing. I think you guys, again, just way ahead of your time. I think 5 years from now, it's like, I can't believe you guys doing this 5 years before people discovered, what you guys are doing. So be encouraged. I love it.
We are encouraged. Our mutual friend Dallas, he called me one day and just really encouraged me with something similar. He goes, bro, you are, what did he say? He said something like, you are digging wells and it hasn't rained yet.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so
that's okay. Somebody has to go, and if God wants us to be the pioneers on some levels, we'll pioneer.
it's an honor. It's an
But
honor.
question number 4.
Yeah, back to you. If you could go on a road trip this weekend and bring a snack, where would you go? What would you bring?
A road trip, I'd probably go to Houston because my brother moved to Houston. I haven't seen my brother in a few months, so my best friend. So Houston, and then bring a snack. I'm more like a drinks person. Like people have like snacks. Like I'm cool with the smoothie, with the coffee, with the like a soda. I don't know. I think I'm like, yeah. Those people that have like 3 drinks in their compartment. I'm like, I'll have an energy drink, like a water, a coffee. So I'm like, I need to throw all this stuff out of my car. So probably just like a good, like a Slurpee.
Good beverage.
Love it.
That's so funny. Okay, question number 5, the last and final question we have for you, Allan. If you could leave the listener with one piece of encouragement today, what would you want to leave them with?
One piece of encouragement. This is one thing that I feel like the Lord gave me at the end of last year, was just that your greatest opportunities will come on the other side of your obedience. I think in a generation where we want so much instant gratification and we want everything so immediate, we want God to see us now, we want people to see us now. Obviously I'm in young adult ministry, so it's like, where's my wife, where's my husband? I just think if you can be obedient in the daily like little things, that there's opportunity out there for you. It can look like in the workplace if you're not necessarily a ministry leader, but it could be in relationships. Like some of my best friends have just been I think about if I would have continued to just like live sinfully, and some of my best friends now who are very righteous, holy, they're chasing the Lord with all they have. I wouldn't even be able to be in the same circle of friends as them, because they'd be like, okay, we need to like walk alongside you, we can't really like let you in the friendship circle, you need help. So I just think about the opportunity that I have now to be incredible friends with some young adults at this church that I'm helping lead, because I've just been obedient with like letting little things in my life go, being obedient where the Lord's calling me, learning how to discern and hear his voice, being obedient and what the Lord's called me to do, how to lead my marriage, how do we, prayer and devotional time and stuff like that. I think a lot of the world wants the opportunity, and I think it always starts with just a little bit of obedience day by day.
It's a great challenge to leave the listener with, right, Josiah?
And us too. Allan, we're grateful for you, man. What a good conversation.
Much. I'm so sorry for all the technical difficulties.
You're okay.
No worries. You're listening to the Young Adults Today podcast. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Josiah, and I just want to invite you this August 15th and 16th right here to Irvine, California. It's beautiful here. We're at Mariners Church, and this is our location for the West Coast Leaders Conference, and it won't be the same without you here. And there's going to be times where you can meet new friends that can last a lifetime in ministry together, learn about generations and practical young adult ministry leadership training. There'll be times of roundtable, praying together, checking out Thursday nights at Mariners, which is the Thursday night young adult service here. And I'm just telling you, there's a buy one, get one free deal. The link is in the show notes, and bring your team. Come. I can't wait to see you here in Irvine, California this August.